Ladies and gentlemen, my name is TotalBiscuit. It's no secret that when The Division first entered beta, I was not a fan of it. The game came along with quite a lot of hype, for the most part, as far as I'm concerned, simply because PC needed some form of looter shooter to compete with Destiny, which they didn't have access to. I imagine that probably had a great deal to do with it, and of course the looter shooter being something of a genre du jour at the time was resulting in quite a lot of hype surrounding the title. I did not share that particular hype. A lot of it comes down to the fact that as a genre, I don't think looter shooter is particularly good. There's quite a lot of design conflict, I feel, within a great number of them. A lot of it comes down to the idea that if you're going to combine a loot-based RPG with a shooter, then you're probably going to run into a situation where you either have to make weapons too weak or enemies too tough. This results in bullet sponging, and it often also results in, unfortunately, very boring and very marginal progression. We've seen it time and again. The Division is only one example of it. More recently, Shadow Warrior 2 fell into exactly the same trap, which as far as I'm concerned torpedoed what could have otherwise been a very good game. So, you kind of know my position on looter shooters going into it, which is why you might be quite surprised that the new DLC for The Division has not only got me playing it again, but actually makes me like it a hell of a lot more, and as far as I'm concerned is far, far better than the base game. There's also a very interesting point when it comes to the way that this DLC has been done and exactly what this DLC is attached to. Because while The Division is a looter shooter, there is another little subgenre that's been ticking over lately. And it goes by the name of Battle Royale. You may have seen a few games claim to be Battle Royale games. H1Z1 is an example, The Culling another, and a few other titles. Battle Royale's been an idea for a little while. It popped up in the modding scene for a number of different games, and it's also popped up, unsurprisingly, in early access. We see early access being a business model that is often used for survival titles, and Battle Royale is something of an offshoot of that. They are survival-style titles, for all intents and purposes. Except they happen to have a PvP-orientated slant, and also tend to be set up in such a way that the sessions are a little shorter. Survival games often involve play until you die, a sense of permanence that is lacking in Battle Royale titles. So along comes The Division Survival and says, you know what? We can do Battle Royale inside our MMO-style looter shooter. We can actually put that in there. We already have the necessary mechanics to make it work. We simply have to flesh it out a little bit. We need to add those key survival elements, in this case, the elements. In The Division Survival, you crash land in an area of New York. It uses the same level layout and the same tile set as the regular game, but it repurposes it somewhat. It shuffles things up. It changes where the drops are, changes what enemies there are, and regardless of your character's level, everybody starts in exactly the same situation. You queue up for survival once you go into the little station area. You can queue up for either PvE or PvP modes, the PvP mode being, in my opinion, by far the superior one, but I happen to be recording PvE simply because I don't want to die 2 minutes into the video. That would make for a fairly poor video, all things considered. And you start with little more than the clothes on your back, of which you don't have all that many. Crafting clothes, as you've probably noticed, is kind of key for resisting the elements, and a pistol. And you are tasked with making your way to the Dark Zone, crafting a flare gun, summoning a rescue helicopter, and getting the hell out of there. Hopefully, you can also do that alongside some nice loot, because there is quite a lot of that available in here, assuming that you look in the right places. Now, right now, I'm crafting myself a gun out of weapon parts, Very, very basic weapon, but certainly better than what I've got. And really the way to describe the Division survival is that it takes the entire Division experience and condenses it down into something that lasts, assuming that you actually live through it, about an hour to 2 hours worth of gameplay. Once you're done with it, it doesn't affect your main character whatsoever outside of any rewards that you get. You can either extract items out of the Dark Zone in the same way that the Dark Zone system works otherwise. And you will also get rewards based on your position, that being how long you've survived and how many people were left when you eventually died, assuming you did. Of course, you can also extract, and if you extract, you can get all the items out of the Dark Zone as well. It's a very interesting little setup, and honestly, condensing the Division experience down to that is, in my opinion, extremely beneficial. It answers quite a lot of the problems that I initially had with the Division. Not all of them, but quite a few. Simply because I, viewed the Division as something of a grind, no doubt about it. There was a fairly massive emphasis on marginal loot upgrades, getting the same guns with slightly better stats and all sorts of things like that, which is, in my opinion, not particularly compelling gameplay by any stretch of the imagination. Some people liked it, no doubt. I did not. I was absolutely not one of them. Oh dear. That was unfortunate. Well, after specifically saying, yeah, I'm going to play PvE to make sure I don't die within the first 5 minutes, I died within the first 5 minutes. Oh well, never mind. Anyway, my opinion on the regular Division is pretty well known, and it's not a game that I enjoyed, and I made it abundantly clear in the beta, so I haven't really come back to it since. But we're in a weird situation where, if this game were released standalone, that being the survival mode, it would be, by far, the best Battle Royale survival game on the market, by a country mile. And a lot of that is down to the simple fact that everything else is low budget and in early access, so is for the most part buggy, unfinished, and all that sort of thing. Whereas in this case, what they've done is they've created an entirely separate game mode that stands alone and independent of your regular character progression in an existing engine with existing mechanics, adding on certain things such as disease progression, adding on certain things such as the elements and your temperature dropping, having to manage that, otherwise you freeze to death, and setting up a situation where you have extremely limited resources, all while playing on perhaps the most successful part of the Division in the first place, which was the Dark Zone gameplay. Now, the PvE survival is certainly challenging, no doubt. As you noticed, you face high-level enemies right off the bat, and that's only on the outskirts. You need to make your way all the way over here, into the Dark Zone, which is quite the trek, for one thing, and you can't even get in there until you have enough parts to create a mask, which will allow you to get in there in the first place, otherwise you immediately just die of the disease. And of course you need to craft clothes to make sure that you don't die of hypothermia, which is likely to happen here if I'm not bloody careful. I'm going to try and take these guys down quickly and then find myself a heat source before I freeze to death. There's got to be one around here somewhere. God, I hope there's one around here somewhere. Thankfully, there is someone to sort of help me there. Nothing, I was hoping I could blow that up. And maybe that would get... Oh, I can see fire over there. And hopefully I can get there before I freeze to death. But the addition of the PvP element, that's something that made the Dark Zone a very compelling thing. It was the most exciting part of the Division by far. This idea that there is a reason to band together, but simultaneously a reason to distrust everybody around you. Very much a case of, do I shoot first? Do I not? Do I trust this person? There was a very interesting element, as far as I'm concerned, of communication, bearing in mind you have proximity voice over IP, which was used to great effect in that game mode. However, in this case, it's a bit more of a desperate situation. The biggest threat is not necessarily the other players. It may very well be those elite enemies that you're facing off against. The stuff that you're seeing on the outskirts is fairly basic but still dangerous. You can easily get caught off guard, particularly bearing in mind that the survival mode has extremely limited visibility. You've got this snow all over the place. There's a weapon container on the top of there. I'm not entirely sure how the hell I'm supposed to get there to make my way back to the shelter, I think, before I freeze. You have extremely limited visibility, which means that you can be caught very easily, unawares. And, more to the point, you don't start with any skills. If you want skills, you're gonna have to craft them. And crafting skills costs resources which are otherwise very hard to find. I'm gonna head to the helicopter crash site, and hopefully there's still some unscavenged stuff over here. Lord knows if that's true or not. The issue that I've got really with the PvP, which I still think is the way to play it, and I find it very, very compelling to do so, although I would recommend that you do so in a group. There are disadvantages to doing so, no doubt about that, because resources are not shared drops, so you end up in a situation where you're competing sort of even with your own team for limited resources, which can be somewhat problematic. However, regardless of that, having a group means you're far more likely to survive in both PvE and PvP situations, so that's a good thing, no doubt. The issue really is that the Dark Zone has a penalty for killing other players. It turns it into something of a risk-reward situation. As to how effective that penalty is, that's debatable. Some people don't think that it's very effective. Oh dear, this is gonna get real bad. Oh, there's a fire down there. Can I get there? God, let me jump off, please, before I freeze. Some people don't think the penalty is good enough, but there is a penalty regardless. You know, you get a bounty on you, and that can certainly be a problem. For the love of God, let me get to that fire. Where is it? I can't see it. I can't see the fire. It was over here, right? Please! Please! There's gotta be... Where is it? Oh, there's a brazier there. Please tell me this is in range. It's not. Ah! I can't get out this way. Psst. Am I going to freeze to death as a result of this? It's entirely possible. Oh, no, 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 no. Come on. I could use a med kit, but I don't think it's going to keep me alive. Oh, there's got to be a way over here. There isn't a penalty for killing people in this mode, which means in the PvP mode, at least on the outskirts, killing people seems like the way to go, because you can take their resources, and I am literally going to die of hypothermia because I can't climb a fence. This is not ideal at all. Come on, really? It's just not quite close enough. It's like, yes, hi. You can't warm me up, so I'm done. Oh, no. What a disaster. I think that is perhaps something that people may very well criticize this mode for. Because getting a bullet in the back of the head is certainly not a lot of fun, especially with reduced visibility. As soon as you pick up something like a bolt-action rifle, you can two-shot a player without too much of a problem. And once you're dead, you're kicked out of the mode entirely. So it is a case that you will lose your progress. Thankfully, since the mode is only about an hour or two long, I don't really mind it so much. I'm actually pretty much fine with that. And as a result, what it creates... Oh, thank God. Please help. What it creates... Or... Please? He killed me. What a... This is PvE mode! What a bastard! Ah, that happens a lot in PvP. I didn't expect it to happen in PvE. Good lord. Anyway. What ends up happening is you've got this really compelling, tense experience. You're scavenging for resources. You're starting with basically nothing, which to me evokes the theme a hell of a lot better than the rest of the game does. This idea that it's a post-apocalyptic society that would have limited resources is kind of thrown to the wolves within about 10 minutes of starting the game when you're suddenly decked out with thousands of rounds of ammunition and military-grade equipment, which is all upgraded in a very marginal way. You throw all of that out with this mode because your upgrades come quickly and they matter. They make a significant difference. And that, to me, is absolutely massive. That's what, as far as I'm concerned, makes the survival mode not only a hell of a lot more fun than the base game, but frankly a better realization of the potential of the base game. It certainly doesn't hinder it at all that it's disconnected from your regular character. Although you could make arguments that the survival mode should level you up faster. I mean, I have no interest in playing the main mode, and all of the rewards that I get from this, of course, I can't use because they're all level 30. But considering that this was designed to be implemented about 6 months after the release, which it was, it's unsurprising that it's aimed at people that have maxed out characters, because those are the kind of people that would still be sticking around in the game. And of course, it aims to reactivate lapsed players as well. It's a mode that you can just play without touching the main game, which in some ways is kind of a weakness. I mean, you could say, well, does that really help then if people aren't engaging with the main mode whatsoever and they're just playing this? Isn't that a bad thing? Well, I would make the argument that it's better to have people playing some form of it than have them playing no form of it at all. It's like the notion that, oh, well, if everyone just plays ARAM in League of Legends, then isn't ARAM like harming the matchmaking or competitive experience or whatever? Like, no, it's not. Because if people have that preference, then forcing them to play a mode they don't want to play is counterintuitive. They're not going to stick around and do that. There's far too much competition within the genre and the gaming space. There's loads of games coming out. You can't force people to play stuff they don't want to play. But if they're playing some form of it, that's fine, and maybe you do get some people converting. But one way or the other, they're using a premium DLC model whereby you do have to pay for this on top of the regular game, which means it's probably not going to sell a lot of new copies of the title. What it may very well do is reactivate those of us that quit around launch because this game clearly was not for them and had a bunch of problems in the process. But I really do enjoy this mode a lot. As opposed to grinding out level after level. Oh, God! That's an explosive. As opposed to grinding out level after level, as opposed to getting upgrades which don't feel like they matter, because frankly they don't. Tiny little 2% and 3%, tiny little increases in DPS. You're getting upgrades that make big differences. You're getting clothes that vastly increase your survivability. I love the fact that your appearance items actually matter. They make a difference. There are times when a scarf is better than a scar. I like that line. Yeah, we're going to keep that. It's good. It's good, isn't it? You like it? Yeah, I like it. The idea of having to scavenge for food. The idea of having to deal with your ongoing infection. That puts a timer on everything. It adds an element of tension to it. The idea that you can't necessarily trust anyone. And more to the point, when you do get a firearms upgrade, it's usually an entire tier's worth. You know, it's green to blue. It's blue to purple. It's purple to orange. These are guns that have benefits that you can activate almost instantly. It's like the experience of going from level 1 to 30 in an hour or so, and then getting to do it all over again, and no two playthroughs are ever alike. That is compelling as hell, as far as I'm concerned. And that, to me, is a great repurposing of the game. Perhaps a slightly counterintuitive one. I don't know whether or not it's going to end up helping the main game mode, as it were. But as I said before, better to have people playing some form of it than none whatsoever. It is kind of a shame that it isn't a fully standalone title, as I think this would do ridiculously well if it were. There's already proof that there's a pretty significant market for this Battle Royale game mode. And there are very few games that do it well. These games are, for the most part, buggy, unfinished, low budget, played by hackers and unpleasant folks. Admittedly, that's not to say that this mode does not necessarily have hacking problems. The Division has been fairly legendary for having that, although I do believe they have significantly fixed quite a lot of that since then. Although I can't really say for sure because I didn't really play an awful lot after launch. It's well realized, though. What would I do to improve it? I mean, you do still have fairly spongy enemies, but they're not too bad. And more to the point, there's a very big kill or be killed feel to it, where you can die very quickly, and the vast majority of the enemies, with the exception of the named bosses, do tend to fall fairly fast. It's also nice that you get to experience a wide variety of enemy types in a short period of time. Whereas in the main game, it does take a while to end up reaching these other enemy types. So you end up fighting the same thugs over and over and over again, especially in the same sort of areas. You could flesh out some of the mechanics a little bit. It may very well be that things like the disease progression are accurately considered fairly basic, as well as, of course, the heat system. That said, though, you don't want to overcomplicate the mode to the point of slowing it down so much that it ends up being bogged down by excessive mechanics. Please tell me this fire can warm me up. It actually can. What was it? Teach a man to give a man a fire, he'll be warm for a day. Set a man on fire, he'll be warm for the rest of his life. Yeah, that thankfully does work. There we go. I just healed myself with explosions. Logic is wonderful, although I do need to get back inside pretty quickly. It's usually a little bit warmer when you're in the shelter like this. So, no, I don't necessarily think they need to do a huge amount of that. What I think would be kind of neat is if they didn't give you the guaranteed blueprints right from the start. I do find myself falling back on the same bolt action over and over again at the start, although later on, things do diversify a little bit. So if I find a blue weapon that isn't a bolt action, I'll probably still use it. Simply because, hey, it's a blue weapon, it's a lot better. There's got to be some heat around here somewhere. Oh god, it's fireball right here. Where is it? Where is it? Of course it's in the middle of those bastards. Run, 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 run. Roll. Roll for your life. That's a gravestone. Ah. There we go. There's the fireball. Thank god. Please tell me I can take cover near here. Good. Whew. Close. Very close. Those moments are really tense, though, thanks to the whole idea that once you're dead, unless you get revived. And is it likely to happen? Well, as you saw earlier, perhaps not. Even in PvE, people are bastards. And that's survival games in a nutshell, isn't it? You know, it's every man for themselves. Kill be kill. Survival of the fittest. So if you're looking for a Battle Royale style game, this is an odd place to find it, but a good one. Now, if you enjoy the gunplay of The Division in the first place, if you don't hate it, then you may very well find that The Division Survival was actually what you were looking for. The Division is a lot cheaper to buy right now. Is it worth buying solely for this mode? Potentially. Potentially, especially if you can get it at a lower price and you've got a group of people to sort of regularly play with. I don't think that's too bad an idea at all. But as of the add-ons that they could have made for this, Survival is both a fairly unique prospect and a mode that, as far as I'm concerned, is extremely compelling and realizes the theme of The Division far better than the base game does. And I'm going to continue to play it as a direct result of that. Hopefully a hell of a lot better than this. If you want to see us doing a lot better than this, go watch Force's stream VODs, where we survive for like over an hour and get a bunch of different gear. This was an absolutely hopeless set of runs, and sometimes you do get that. But you know what? I want to queue up for another one. So, well played to the guys over at Massive for coming up with a mode like this. It really has revitalized my interest in this title. Admittedly, doing so by almost breaking the formula, one could argue. Division Survival, ladies and gentlemen. My name has been TotalBiscuit. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, by all means, do feel free to click the like button. If not, the dislike button is right over there. And I'll see you next time.